welcome back to another Just 5 Mins. Okay, what have we got this time? It's Obsidian. Obsidian, I suppose, note taker, knowledge management system, whatever you want to call it. And there's a lot of this stuff around. I've been using Microsoft OneNote for years because it basically synchronizes across all my devices without thinking about it. But therein lies the issue if, like a lot of people, it seems, that don't really want all your data being kept in the cloud. Basically, look, I personally don't have any issues with OneNote there, but and OneDrive for that matter, and Google Drive and things like that. But obviously, you've got to be a bit careful what you store in there, and also the data could be lost potentially. I know it's get the words out, unheard of these days, but it can happen. Obsidian, I looked at it a few years. Well, I don't know. I seem to think about a couple of years ago because I don't think it's been around for that long. And look, it looked like just a basic sort of note-taking app, and I didn't think much of it at the time, to be honest, because it didn't seem to have a lot of the features that I'd sort of got to know and love from OneNote, or even back in the day Evernote, which went through obviously a lot of changes. But interestingly, one thing or two things that Obsidian seemed to have up their sleeves was the fact that primary as well, is that it's stored locally. Okay, so the idea is that can present some issues, but if you've got a laptop or a PC, you can it saves the data from your notes all locally. And that's probably a good thing until you maybe do move devices and you think, oh, I need those notes or I need that or whatever. Okay, now the good news is they do have an app for Windows. Where's the other platforms? Let me just have a look. They have basically they've got iOS, Android, Windows, Mac, and Linux actually, or Linux. I never know how to say that. So they've covered really the bulk, including Linux, really, or Linux, which is really good because that usually gets left out a lot of these things. So Windows, Mac, Android, and iOS. Okay, so you could have all notes, but they're all going to be local to that device. Okay, which again, not a bad thing. But the other thing is that all the notes are in what they call like Markdown. I'll put a link. I know a lot of people use this. It's like a formatting. I was going to say language. It's not really a language. It's a format used a lot in like things like coding when you've got documentation online, etc. I forget the full details of it now, but I'll get a link to Markdown. But that simplifies things because it's also cross-platform, open, and all the rest of it. But interestingly, it's free, by the way, Obsidian. I should have started with that, shouldn't I? So it starts free, okay, for personal use. There is a $50 per user per year for a commercial use. But interestingly, the free version really is all app features. No, you don't even have to have an account or sign up required if you don't want. You get themes, plugins, API support, community support. Obviously, in the commercial one, there's priority support and goodness knows what. Okay, but the free version is going to be for most people that I know of personally, anyway. And that's great, and you can get that info. Now, when you come to then wanting to synchronize your notes, they do have add-ons. Okay, so for $8 US a month, they do have their own synchronization process. Okay, but they also have a publish as well. Okay, and the publish is basically, if I've looked down, synchronization is synchronization. It's going to sync across all the devices that you've got an account for, but it's still local to that device. Obsidian just use a secure synchronization process, so they don't store it anywhere in the cloud as such. It just synchronizes down to your whichever device, like a Android, iOS, PC, Mac, whatever. Okay, so that's great, but they also have this publish process where it sort of can publish like a wiki knowledge-based documentation, or what they call digital garden. Don't you just love that? Okay, so it's almost like, dare I say, a blog type thing, so you can publish some of or all of your notes. But it is generally a note taken up, but it has some really clever things. Like, it does have this graph, basically. Okay, so you can link notes together, and it's a little bit gimmicky maybe, but it produces, I think they use D3JS underneath, which is a 3D library for this type of stuff. But it is basically a way of taking your notes to the knowledge management side of things, where you can link notes together in multiple ways. It's not just one-to-one or anything. So you might have a sentence out of OneNote that wants to link to another document, or to another paragraph, or even a word in another document. This can produce this graph for you. And it is quite clever, actually. It's a little bit gimmicky in one way, but actually, when I've been using it and trying this out, it is actually quite good, because you can sort of visually traverse through your notes. I think it got me anyway. And mind you, then again, you just have to put a shiny piece of tin foil in front of me, and I'll, chase after that, or a balloon, for goodness sake. But anyway, but it is actually really worth it. And the last thing, and I've gone way over, but it's worth it, is that even if you go for the free version, okay, and you don't want to pay $8 a month for the synchronization capability, they Obsidian quite clearly say, look, if you've got something like OneDrive or Google Drive or whatever, or folder sync, or all of these other things, you can use that, and they're not stopping you from using it. So I've used my OneDrive to have a folder on there where I store my Obsidian notes. Now, you could then argue, well, that's going against the fact, because your notes now are going to be on OneDrive. But hear me out. It's a way of synchronizing. Yes, it's stored on OneDrive, but if you want to pay some money, or get like something like folder sync or sync thing, or whatever those things are called, then great, do that. But for convenience, I used OneDrive. Okay, you can use Google Drive. And by the way, if you use these types of things, you don't pay any money at all. They give you quite a list of Box, Dropbox, OneDrive, as I mentioned. There's quite a few other sort of online systems there. Okay. The only thing that I came up against, and I haven't tried it on iOS yet or the Mac. I'm assuming Mac's going to be fine, because I can use OneDrive on my Mac, so that's not a problem. But for some reason, because of how it stores on an Android phone, where your folders, and it's got all the permissions, you can't natively see the OneDrive folders. Okay, I've got OneDrive on my Android device, but Obsidian, through the normal Android file system, probably there's other workarounds this, by the way, but what I ended up doing, I think it was only a couple of quid as a one-off, something called folder sync. I'll put a link to that as well. Actually, it looks really good for anything anyway, to do backups of other stuff. But the good thing is, it can, the pro version, which is, like I say, I think it was about 2 or 3 quid or something in UK money, about $5. It's a one-off, by the way, no subscription. But anyway, the idea is that can then sync with all of these other sort of online cloud systems, with the local file system on Android. So it does work, and I have then got full synchronization capabilities. Excuse me, sorry. So I could have gone for $8 a month and just be done with it with Obsidian, to be honest. But I just wanted to try that out first, because it does seem like a great option. And the good thing is as well, it might support the company Obsidian as well, if you do that. But anyway, they do have, by the way, on the pricing side, as I say, it's free with everything, all the features that you want. Okay, so it is really, really free. But they do have, like I say, they've got sync and they've got publish that I've mentioned, but also they've got something called early access, which I think is quite good. you can get beta versions and VIP badges, and also it's helping them support the company. They're giving this free. Okay, and as we know, you can't live on free, these days, unfortunately. I wish you could, but it's not really going to happen, is it? But anyway, they've got a one-time payment of $25 or more. They recommend $25, and it's a one-time payment, and that goes to supporting their development, and also looking after everything else that goes on. But anyway, I've gone way over. This is like a double just 5 minutes, this one, isn't it? Anyway, that's what I've got. I'm pretty taken aback from the original time when I saw Obsidian, where it was really just like a markdown, basic note-taking. Yes, you could store the data locally, but now it's evolved, and the graph part, I know you could probably add this to other note systems like Notion and stuff like that, but I like the simplicity of what Obsidian are offering. So that's what I've got this time. So take care until next time, and bye bye for now.